2024, huh? Happy New Year, guys. I hope everything is going well for you. And this is the first video for this year, so I wanted to do a 2023 recap, which is late as always because I wanted to upload this on New Year's Eve, but I couldn't manage to finish it in time, so here we are. So in this video, we're gonna take a look at all the builds I did last year, which are not too many to be honest. I would also like to take a second to talk about the channel itself and what I've planned for this year so you guys know what to expect. I also included the micros, the dollhouse builds, and some random stuff from last year, but I put it towards the end of the video. So they're basically two parts, and I also put timestamps in the description below if you want to skip anything. But I would of course appreciate it if you watch the whole thing. Please don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video. It's the easiest way to support the channel. And now, without further ado, here we go. So the first build uploaded last year was the abandoned beach house, which is a one pack build. I only used base game and island living to build this, so no other packs required. And my goal here was to build something for you guys to explore or to renovate, or it was also intended for the storytellers because you're people who like to tell their own stories and sometimes you need certain types of builds. So these are not really meant for gameplay because as you can see, there's a lot of clutter here and your sims can't really walk in here. I even blocked the entrance by using this fence here because if this was a real house, you don't really want people to come in here because as you guys can see, there's holes in the floor. We even have a tree growing in here, and if you take a look at the backside of the house, its structural integrity is certainly impaired. So looking at this build after a year, I'll have to say this is one of my all-time favorite builds I did on this channel. Also because I discovered quite a few objects I didn't know about in the game, mainly debug. For example, these mailboxes here from Island Living, which look amazing in my opinion. So this is not really a big house, but I would say it's sufficient for a family of 3, or you could use it as a weekend home in your game. So if you're interested in renovating this, it's still on the gallery of course. There's also another abandoned slash derelict build sitting in my gallery, which I will release soon. So if you guys are interested in that, make sure to subscribe to the channel. This one is actually base game, so if you don't have Island Living, you might want to wait for that one. However, it's also a lot smaller than this one, but I thought some of you might enjoy turning it into a functional tiny home. So the next build I want to take a look at is the Sylvan Glade Cottage, and for those of you who are unaware, Sylvan Glade is one of the secret worlds in the game. It's included in base game, so everyone can reach it, and it's pretty cool. I think it's one of the smallest lots in the game. And there's this really odd lighting here which makes everything look purplish. So building there is really odd. If you guys want to know how to get there, you can either click on my Sylvan Glade Cottage video or do a quick Google search. But you basically have to interact with one of the strange looking trees in base game until you get the option to crawl inside, and from there it's just a very easy riddle before you get the option to travel to Glade. So if you know what you have to do, it's pretty easy. So as you guys can see, the lighting inside is normal except for this small area here. And what's difficult about building here is that you have to keep in mind that the purple alters the tone of the colors, so they look different here, which isn't too much of an issue, but I try to make sure that the build looks good in a different lighting as well and that the colors match. And when I placed this in a different lot for the first time, I was surprised how well the colors match, at least in my opinion. So looking at this now, I have to say I also like the interior, even though I'm the one who built this, but you know what I mean. But there's still one thing that bothers me now, and it's the ceiling. But back in the day, we didn't have any options to paint ceilings, so now I would probably use the same wood I used for the floor here. This build is also on the gallery and play tested. So next up is this container home here, which is supposed to look like it's made from old shipping containers, of course, as you guys can see here. I think most of the objects I used for the container look are included in Equal Lifestyle, also a lot of the furniture. So with this house, I wanted to go for a clean industrial look, as you guys can see here. I used a lot of debug from different packs, mostly for the exterior because the interior is pretty clean, I would say, not too cluttered, a lot of open spaces there. And I feel like this creates some nice contrast between the exterior and the interior. So the color scheme of this build derives from this object here, which is also from Equal Lifestyle. As you guys can see, the main colors are yellow, white, black, and different shades of gray. And also try to use some debug objects in an unusual way. For example, we have the rails here, which I used as an awning. So as I said before, the interior is pretty clean, as you guys can see here. I didn't want to have too much clutter here. Also because this house is not as big as it looks from the outside. I don't think it would qualify as any of the micro tiny home tiers because I used a lot of platforms, which we'll see in a second. So we have like 4 patios here. So this is the living room slash office workspace area. And this TV here really bothers me because it's way too small. I'm not sure what I did here, but I think this is much more appropriate for the room. So because we have some diagonal parts, with this build. We have this very oddly shaped bathroom here, which I don't really like, to be honest, but it was basically the only place I had for it. However, this house has actually another half bathroom upstairs, as you guys can see here, and this is just one big open area. Of course, I used my favorite bed in the game, which is this one here. It's just great, so many good swatches. I'm not even sure from which pack this one is. Maybe I should do some research. So as you guys can see, we have 4 patios here, so a lot of outdoor space for your Sims. So next up is the base game Seaside Cottage. So this build was inspired by a picture I saw on Pinterest or somewhere else, I can't remember, probably Pinterest, and it turned out completely different, so it looks nothing like the reference picture anymore. I'm not sure why I made the walls that high, because this is actually the tallest walls we have in the game. So like in the reference picture, I wanted to have a lot of flowers outside, so a really nice garden area. And I built this path here using terrain paint and lots of flowers. Base game has actually a lot of very nice looking flowers. I built this on one of my favorite lots, which is in Brindleton Bay. I think it's the boathouse lot. I'm not sure what it's called exactly, but I'm gonna put it in the description below somewhere. I mean, look at this view, it's beautiful. This lot has also good lighting, so I like to build here, and it's one of the smaller lots, which I prefer because this way I have to do less landscaping, and for those of you who are new to the channel, my landscaping is usually very extensive, so it takes up a lot of time. For this build, I also used my herb spiral, which I built before, so this is mainly for decoration, so you can add it to your builds. It's of course also base game and you can download it separately, and this way you can add some character and additional detail to your builds. And I think it fits very well here because this build has a garden theme. As usual, I try to include as many small details as possible to make this house look a bit more interesting and also more realistic. I think this was the first build where I used the new light switch that they introduced back then, and it was really disappointing because the light switch is actually called unswitchable light switch, and I couldn't believe it that they included an object that doesn't do anything. And this wasn't my main issue here, but they announced it on their front page and in the patch notes like it was a big deal. It would have been a nice addition if it was actually functional, but this way it feels like mockery. Anyway, this house is pretty small. It's for a family of 3 people, so there are 2 bedrooms. And I also tried to use these awkward spaces here as storage units. Also a nice PC setup here. That's the Seaside Cottage. Playtested, functional, base game. So next up is another cottage, namely the Abandoned Cottage. This one was pretty popular and it uses so many packs, but this time I didn't want to restrict myself, so I used everything that I had. I also built this on one of my favorite lots here in Winterberg, which is called Cottage on Sea, and it's one of the smaller lots which has some nice lighting, which is one of the reasons why I like to build here. I think this is my most detailed abandoned build to date, because I used so many wall decorations, the cracks, the holes in the wall, the stain, and I think most of them are from vampires and werewolves, of course, which are really nice packs to have if you want to build something like this yourself. This build was inspired by a house I saw in real life, but I took some creative freedom here, of course. And as you guys can see, I also forgot about the ceiling paint this time because I think it was fairly new at the time and I just didn't think about it. I just noticed that I didn't use it. So I really like the interior here, but my favorite part is the garden area because I spent most of the time landscaping, and I also really like the greenhouse I built here. The roof is custom. I used debug objects, which I rotated using the tool mod. Also gonna put it in the description below. So if you guys are interested in renovating a house, this one is of course on the gallery, but be aware that they are not usable for gameplay in this state. And you really have to do the renovation first to use it in your game, and maybe I do a video renovating this house. Let me know in the comments below if you would be interested in that. I really like this build, but it only comes in second place for my abandoned builds. First one would be the abandoned farmhouse. So the next build on this list is a rather interesting one in my opinion. I call it the modern Hobbit hole. And it was of course inspired by the Hobbit holes in the Lord of the Rings. So this is of course an underground house, or at least supposed to look like one. So this house is not really underground, but I used dirt and plants to cover the roof, so it creates the illusion of this house being built into the hill. So I wanted to give this house a cozy, modern, warm vibe, and I tried to keep in mind what made the Hobbit houses special. For example, having a fireplace, having a cozy bed, having a nice large kitchen area. So the exterior of this build was an absolute nightmare because one plant made the house not functional because the objects in the bathroom didn't work, and so I had to remove plant after plant to figure out which one was causing the issue. I almost gave up on this build, but I'm glad I didn't because I feel like it's pretty unique. So the next build is a personal favorite of mine. I called this the Studio Ghibli-inspired Cottage because I tried to imitate the very particular art style of these movies. So one thing I noticed when I placed this lot from the gallery was that it's actually flooded when you place it. And if you encounter this problem, just use the delete water tool. I'm sorry, I'm not sure why this happens, but it's a fairly easy fix if you just delete the water, and this is what it's supposed to look like. So as I said before, this is inspired by the Studio Ghibli style, and if you guys are unfamiliar, to my knowledge, they still draw these movies by hand, and they take a lot of time putting in all those little details. And I tried to do the same with this build here. So I built this bridge here using objects from debug and platforms, but I also wanted to include some other objects that fit the style of this build, for example the swing set or these beehives here. So what I like most about this build is this here. So I built these stairs using platforms and then cluttered them with plants and other objects. And there's also this little fella here. So when I built this, I just wanted to make it super cozy and, as I said, add unconventional and interesting details. But somebody actually came up with the backstory for this house, and I really like that one, so thank you for that. I'm gonna put it on the screen, and if you're interested in reading it, you can simply pause the video. So as you guys can see, this is a diagonal build, which is always hard to furnish, but I couldn't find a place for the letters, so I had to place it outside since we don't have diagonal letters. However, I think this isn't too much of an issue because Ghibli houses are usually quite unconventional, and I think it fits the aesthetic quite well. This house is one of my all-time favorites, and I'm pretty pleased how it turned out. So next up is another base game build, and this one is really special to me. The base game Overgrown Victorian house, and I really put a lot of effort into this one, and you guys seem to like it. I was a bit worried when I built this because this is my first Victorian house ever. I mean, I did some research on Victorian houses, but I'm not really sure how accurate this is. You can let me know in the comments below if you're an expert. So as usual, I try to make this build interesting, so we have a tree growing on the roof here. And also try to give the house a personal touch. So for example, we have these cats here, which are debug objects from base game, of course. Again, I have to mention that base game has some really nice objects, which I tend to use for non-base game builds as well. And I think a lot of people underestimate base game because I see comments where people seem very surprised that this is base game, and there are also some very creative people out there who do only base game builds, so they never use any packs. Personally, I like to use only base game from time to time because it's challenging for me, but it's also rewarding because I can build something that more people are able to download and play with. Also, one thing I tend to forget is that you can now place small objects on the toilets and sinks, just as I did here, and this way you can make your builds look a bit more realistic, just as I did here. This is the study, also an interesting window here. I built this by stacking 3 windows on top of each other, and as I said before, this is base game, no packs needed. So the next build here is the Plant Lover's Tiny Home, and as the name suggests, this is a tier 2 tiny home, meaning I only used 64 tiles for the whole build. The interior is actually half, but I used so many platforms for the roof and the patio that the size doubled. I wanted to make this look interesting, so I created a custom skylight here using the doors from the Greenhouse Haven kit and some debug objects from base game. This is actually a rather modern build, and it's intended for 2 sims, as you guys can see, with a double bed here. As I said before, the interior is only half of the used space because I used too many platforms, so this is actually 32 tiles in total, and you could reduce it to a micro home if you finish the build yourself, because I also uploaded the dollhouse build beforehand. As you guys can see, we have a very small bathroom here, but it's actually a full kitchen here, and I tried to utilize all the space that I had. So as this is a very small build, I did not only try to utilize all the space that I had, but also to make it look bigger by using lots of white and gray, but also some light wood tones. I also built a custom awning here using base game fences from debug, and in my opinion this looks really interesting. And I also added some light bulbs here, which I think are from Eco Lifestyle. So I wanted the garden area to look natural but not neglected, and I think I achieved that. Let me know in the comments below what you think about the garden area. This house is also in the gallery, of course, and playtest and fully functional. So our next build is a more specific one, the Halloween Party Barn, and this was initially a dollhouse build, so I added the walls later on because I thought it wouldn't be usable for you guys if it was just a dollhouse build, so I wanted to make it usable. So I uploaded this for Halloween, but you can of course use it for different types of parties as well, because this was initially intended to be a party venue for Halloween. And as you guys can see, we have the bonfire here and the cars of our guests parked outside, and the inside is pretty cluttered, as you guys can see. You can't really use the second floor here because it's so cluttered. Your sims can really move here, and Thinking about this now, I think I also said this in the original video, but this build is probably a freaking fire hazard because I placed so many candles here for ambience and lighting, but there's also the haystacks and the dry leaves, so this would probably be pretty dangerous. I didn't get a lot of feedback for this build, so let me know if you like it or not. I always appreciate your feedback, guys. Personally, I think it's too big, but I couldn't make it any smaller because the interior was basically finished. So our next build is what I initially wanted to upload for Halloween, but I couldn't finish it in time as usual. And this build was actually suggested by one of you guys and it got the most likes, so I decided to build the Goth tiny house. So even though I couldn't finish it for Halloween, I didn't want to scrap it because I feel like it's not necessarily a spooky build, so I decided to finish it and upload it after Halloween. There were two drafts for this build. One was completely black, so black roof, black walls, black everything. But I felt like it was too dark, and so I decided to go for this green here for the roof and gray walls. This is actually a tiny house, as the name suggests, and you can also see it in the left hand corner. So as you guys can see, we have lots of nooks and crannies here, and this is because I did a build challenge, of course, and only had 64 tiles in total for this house, but Goth houses tend to be very intricate. That's a nice lamp, by the way, but what I'm trying to say here is you need a lot of tiles for things that are not really necessary. For example, this nook here behind the sofa, and therefore I had to save space, so I shoved, for example, the fridge into the staircase, but it's still usable. And since we don't have a lot of space in the kitchen, this was necessary to do. This house is, by the way, for 2 sims, so we have a double bed, which you will see in a second, but we have a nice dining area here, and I wanted to add more chairs because just 2 is, it feels odd. So this is the office area. This is probably my favorite part here. It's pretty cluttered, as you can see, and I really like the color scheme here, which is some dark wood tones, a little bit of white, and lots of different colors. I think I never used this bed before, but it looks really nice in black. And I think it fits the general aesthetic of this house very well. So the bathroom is really small, as you guys can see. It's also a bit oddly shaped, but this was the only way I could make it work. And what's strange about this bathroom is the toilet wasn't usable until I shoved it all the way into the wall, as you guys can see here. But now it's of course usable because this house is also fully functional. It looks particularly good at night in my opinion, and I think it's a perfect house for like a vampire, werewolf, or maybe a spellcaster. So our next build is actually again a 1-pack build. For this one I just used base game and Snowy Escape. This is a modern build for a family of 3. I really like how it looks. I wanted to build something clean, modern, that fits the Komorebi aesthetic. So as you guys can see, this is a really small lot, so I decided to build this on a hill so I could actually do some landscaping. The house is actually quite big and takes up the majority of the lot, so I had to build it on a hill, but I also like how the hill looks. Snowy Escape has also some very nice plants to use. This build is of course playtested and fully functional, but after uploading it to the gallery I noticed an issue where sims could enter the house but not leave it again. I fixed this by now. The bugs in this game are starting to get on my nerves because there's new ones every day. And for people like me who playtest their builds, it's just so annoying. Anyway, as you guys can see, this is a rather clean and modern house. I used light wood tones for this, mostly grey and white, and it also has a very nice outside fireplace. I also really like how the red trees pop here in between the green, and overall I'm pretty pleased how this turned out. So the last build in this section is the Swedish winter cottage, and since this is my latest video, I'm not going to talk about it too extensively. So as the name suggests, it's of course a winter build, but I made sure that it also looks good in summer, so the plants match, for example. So for this build I decided to go with a very nice red because it's what most people have in mind when you think about Swedish houses. If you want to know more about this build, the video is of course on my channel. I also tried to make it super cozy and give the interior a Scandinavian vibe. This build is for 2 sims and playtested. So this is the second part of the video where I want to show you all the micros, dollhouse builds, and also some random builds that I did. You can find these in my shorts section if you're interested in the individual videos. So first I want to talk about the dusty blue hipster rooms, which actually form a full house. I didn't include all of them because I did some in 2022. So the first room I want to show you is the dusty blue bedroom, and as you guys can see, the theme is always the same. We have blue and brick and some black and white, and of course lots of plants. This is the dusty blue hipster study, and what's interesting about this build here is this poof here, because as you probably know, you can't use poofs as regular chairs, but there's a way how you can basically use anything as a chair. There's also a video on my channel if you're interested in knowing how to do this. As said before, in this video I only included 4 rooms because I only did these 4 last year. So the final house is intended for 5 people, so we have of course more than 1 bedroom, and this is the dusty blue hipster teen bedroom. As you guys can see, I try to give it personality, and as you guys can see, the guy living here likes basketball, music and gaming. This is probably my favorite room, the dusty blue hipster sunroom, which is full of plants of course and full of lights. As you guys can see, we have the same color scheme going on here. I try to make this room extra bright to read or relax, and the same goes of course for the dusty blue hipster reading nook, which is not as blue as the rest of the rooms because this sofa here doesn't have a good blue swatch. But just to give you guys an idea, this is what the house looks at the moment. I built these rooms for my shorts videos if you're new to the channel, but I'm gonna do a full video on this build. I only have to finish one room beforehand, which is the dusty blue twin bedroom. So as I said before, this house is going to be for 5 people. And just to give you guys an idea how the rest of the rooms look, even though I didn't build them last year, this is the bathroom here, which is pretty small. I think I'm going to add another one upstairs, or at least a half bathroom. We also have the living room, which was the first room I did for this build. They look a bit dark at the moment because the second floor is casting shadows and they're not completely closed. And this is the kitchen here. So let me know in the comments below if you want me to continue this concept with different colors and themes in the future. So if you watch the rest of the video, you probably have seen this one before. So this is my base game herb spiral. So this is basically just for decorational purposes, and you can add it to your builds to give them a bit more character, or if you're lazy and don't want to landscape yourself. Upload this as a room to the gallery so you can basically put it anywhere, and to place it you simply remove the platform and use some terrain paint just like I did here. If you're interested in building something similar yourself, you can check out the shorts video, which is kind of a tutorial. Next is the 4x3 micro apartment. So this was a bit of a build challenge for myself because I wanted to build something extremely small, and I always try to add some unique features to my builds. For example here, this big open window. So one thing I realized after uploading this, it's not really 4x3 apartment because it has 2 floors, so it's basically cheating. I still really like the color scheme of this build because it's so bright, and I think it doesn't feel too cramped even though it's so small. You could probably also place several of these on the same lot to build a small apartment building, and overall I'm pretty pleased how this turned out. So next build is a bit more exotic and also less realistic. So this is the jungle loft, and as you guys can see, we have a clear theme here. So lots of plants and even a bit of water, which is, as I said before, not very realistic because due to the moisture there would be mold everywhere. But the goal here was to build something interesting and different, and I think I achieved that. The build is still fully functional though, so you could actually use it in your game if you close it up. So here you see the bathroom, which is of course also functional, with a functional kitchen and a functional bedroom. So in theory this build is usable, and I actually might finish this build in the future just like I did with this one here. So this is the spring kitchen, and last year I wanted to turn this into a full house which had an Easter theme, and I hope I can finish it this year. So this will probably be finished and uploaded in spring. So last year they released the Greenhouse Haven kit, on which I did a review, and it was a bit underwhelming, and so I decided to build base game greenhouses to show you guys that you don't really need the kit. So I built 4 of these and they all look a bit different. So this is the more modern basic one. And as you can see, this one has a custom hatch and a custom sliding door, for which I just used some windows and some objects from debug. I also used plants to create this custom bed here. But this greenhouse is also functional. As you guys can see here, we have some planted pots. This is the second one, which looks a bit more rustic. So as you guys will probably want to add these to one of your existing builds, I uploaded them as slots but also in parts. So you guys can put them together and add a roof, and this way you can add them to your pre-existing builds as well. This one is of course also functional. So the third one looks a bit different than the rest. We have a rounded roof, as you guys can see here. And as you guys can see, I tried to make this one look a bit more fancy. So this glass roof creates some really nice lighting inside. And there's also a small table in here so your sims can basically hang out. And this is less of a greenhouse, but I still added some planted pots here so they are also usable. So except for the first one, they all look a bit more rustic, but I still wanted to give them an individual look, and so I decided to add this guy here who's holding the watering can, and of course Mr. Cat down here. So the last one of these is a bit bigger, as you guys can see. This one has no glass roof, but I still decided to add a hatch here. And we also have the open sliding door, so this one combines the features of the 3 previously shown builds. It's also functional of course, and we have a small outdoor area here as well. And as I said before, you can download these as a lot, so the greenhouse is already put together, or you can download the individual parts, put them together and add a roof, and this way you can add them to your pre-existing builds as well. Next is our New York City apartment. This one is a bit bigger than my usual micro dollhouse builds, as you guys can see, and people told me that it looks quite realistic. So it's basically one room with an additional bathroom, and we also have a rooftop garden area here for like urban beekeeping. Again, with the new for rent pack, this might be usable as an actual apartment, so you could turn this into a full apartment complex. I also tried to utilize all the space, so we have a walk-in closet here and a built-in bookshelf on the other side here. So you guys might recognize the next one here. This is the Plant Lovers micro home, and this time it's only 32 tiles. It's for 2 sims and fully functional and play tested. And if you've watched the rest of the video, this is what I turned into the Plant Lovers tiny home. But I also wanted to show you guys this one here, because you can finish this one yourself if you want to. Adding walls might be a bit tricky, but you can certainly do it. But if you don't want to, the finished build is on my channel. Next up is the forest themed bedroom. So for this one I wanted to use light wood tones, some plants and lots of green of course. So when I built this, I also discovered these paintings here, which look really nice in my opinion. And these gems were basically hidden behind a different swatch. The build is fully functional except for one thing, the Murphy bed here, which I just used for decorational purposes. I will also turn this into a new short series just like the Dusty Blue Hipster house, so let me know which room you want to see next in the comments below. Our last build in this video is simply called Cozy Tiny-Loft, because I think not every build needs a distinctive name. So there's not really a theme here, but I wanted to build something more modern and make it look interesting. So in comparison to my usual builds, this one has a pretty big bathroom and also a separate toilet. And it's also fully functional in its current state, except for one thing. I think the built-in closet doesn't work. But apart from that, it's play tested and functional. So this was the last build on the list, and now I would like to take a moment to first of all thank you for watching the video, and also to talk about what I've planned for this year. And just so that you guys don't have to stare at the blank screen, I decided to include the first part of one of my upcoming videos here. So there are a few things I would like to address. First of all, again, thank you for watching the video, and also thank you to all those long-time subscribers and people who comment frequently. I usually try to answer all the comments, and I certainly read all of them, but sometimes you guys just leave such amazing comments, I'm not even sure what I should answer, and sometimes it takes me a few weeks to answer because I want to do everything right. So if I don't answer, or it takes me some time to answer, please don't take it personally. I'm grateful for all your comments, and the Sims 4 community is just amazing. There's so many nice people here. Also, if you guys have criticism for me, please don't hold back. I think I can handle it. So the next point I would like to talk about is upload schedule. And as you guys know, I don't really have an upload schedule. Well, I don't have an upload schedule, so I don't really have a plan when I build, and I upload whenever I finish a build, because sometimes I don't feel like building at all, and this way I'm not really able to grow this channel as much as I would like to. And therefore, I want to give you some kind of schedule, so I'm gonna upload once a week. There's no specific day until further notice. It will be Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, so I have time to build during the week. So one long video each weekend is my goal here. I will continue to upload shorts infrequently and at random times. So those of you who are just here for the shorts, and you guys are probably watching this video, but there will be more shorts in the future. My personal goal, and this is the next point here, is to reach 50,000 subscribers this year, even though 30,000 subscribers is insane, guys. So again, thank you for everyone who is subscribed to the channel. You guys are the best. Now I would like to talk about why I didn't upload that much last year, and this is because I was thinking about quitting this channel, because there were several reasons. First of all, I didn't enjoy building as much as I used to do, and the reason for that is that I had to upload, and this way took all the fun out of it. You guys might have seen my unfinished build series that I recently started, and just in case you don't know, I basically upload unfinished builds from my gallery as shorts, and this way I can show you guys some builds that might never get finished. And there's so many builds in my gallery that I scrapped, and this is another reason why I didn't upload as many videos as I would have liked, because I don't want to upload something that I don't consider good enough or mediocre, because I want to improve. I hold myself to very high standards, and if I don't like something, I don't upload it, even though some people might say it's a good build. So the last point I would like to talk about is what you guys can expect from this channel in terms of content this year. So we'll of course continue speed builds and stop motions, because this is probably why you guys are here. As I said before, we'll also continue to upload shorts. But I would also like to try out some new concepts for my videos, for example tours, so I might also tour other people's builds and give you guys my opinion. Let me know if you would be interested in that, I'm not sure. But I might also tour my own builds, for example the mansions, so if the video would be really long, if it was a stop motion or a speed build, I might do a tour instead, because I feel like this could be a bit more interesting for you guys to watch. I also plan on doing some challenges. I have a very particular one in mind at the moment, which could be fun, I guess. And if you guys have any ideas for additional challenges, please leave a comment below. I'm sorry guys, I'm asking for a lot of comments today. So concerning the type of build, as you guys probably know, I like to build smaller things like this cottage here. So this year I would like to mix in some bigger stuff as well. For example, some mansions, because I built my last mansion I think 3 years ago, and I haven't uploaded one since. I'm not sure, but I think people prefer bigger builds, and I don't know if you guys have a preference or if you just enjoy the variety. But if you guys have any suggestions or want to see a specific type of build, leave a comment below, I might consider it. Also let me know if you want me to finish this cottage here, which I specifically started building for this video here. I never finished the interior, but I might do so because I really enjoyed building this. And with that, we're at the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, because for some reason this was really a lot of work. Please leave a like, consider subscribing if you guys want to see more, and see you guys next time.